During my husband's birthday dinner at the fancy restaurant, I reached for his hand across the table. He jerked away like I had something sticky on my fingers and said loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "I'd rather hold my dog's paw than touch you." People turned to look. Then he laughed and added, "You're embarrassing. Stop acting desperate." More people stared and giggled. I smiled like nothing happened, but inside something broke. When I finally spoke back, nobody laughed anymore. Sometimes mean words hurt, but my words hurt more. "Tell people you teach art classes at the community center," Nathan told me while I buttoned up the expensive coat he bought but never said looked nice on me. "Don't mention you own the biggest art gallery downtown. These rich people don't care about paintings and stuff." He was teaching me again like he always did before we visited his banker friends, making sure I never sounded smarter than him. 3 years ago, he told everyone he married an artist who sold paintings to museums. Now he acted like my job was something embarrassing I should hide. Before we start, I want to say thank you for watching today. If you think nobody should be treated badly in front of others and everyone should be treated kindly, please click subscribe. It's free and helps more people see these stories. I looked in our bedroom mirror, fixing the purple dress that cost more than some people earn in weeks. The dress was pretty, I think, but it felt like wearing a costume for a play where I forgot what to say. Behind me, Nathan kept checking his tie for the 100th time. Yes, I counted every single one. It was easier than thinking about how things got so bad. "The Roberts family will be there," he said, looking at his phone. "Remember, he sells houses, not insurance. Don't mix that up like last time." I wanted to tell him that I never mixed it up. That was his mistake at the New Year's party. But saying he was wrong wasn't allowed anymore. Instead, I watched him look at himself in the mirror, changing from the man who once brought me flowers after my art shows into someone I barely knew. "I sold a painting to a museum today," I said quietly, testing if he cared. "A woman cried when she saw it because it reminded her of her mom." "That's nice, honey," Nathan interrupted, not even looking up from his phone. "But nobody wants to hear about art stuff at parties. Makes people feel dumb. Just talk about simple things. The weather, vacation plans, maybe that new ice cream shop everyone likes." The weather. I went to art school for 4 years, owned 3 galleries in different cities, and had my paintings in 5 museums. And he wanted me to talk about clouds with bankers who probably couldn't draw a stick figure. My phone buzzed with a message from my gallery manager. The museum painting sold for $50,000. The buyer cried happy tears. Those tears meant more to me than any party ever could, but mentioning it would break Nathan's rules about how I should act. "Also," Nathan added, finally looking at me through the mirror instead of straight at me, "James asked about the charity dinner next month. I said we'd buy tickets. It's $30,000, but it's important for my business." $30,000 for his business connections. Meanwhile, the children's hospital needed art supplies that cost only $15,000. I was planning to donate my own money, but apparently our money was already spent on Nathan's fancy parties. "Ready?" he asked, but it wasn't really a question. He was already walking to the door, expecting me to follow like a pet dog. The car ride felt extra long. Nathan reminded me about names and facts about tonight's guests, treating me like an actress who needed coaching before performing on stage. "Greg Wilson just bought a new boat. Say congratulations, but don't ask how much it cost. And stay away from Michelle if she's drinking wine. She talks too much about her marriage problems." I nodded while thinking about the museum buyer, how she'd hugged me and said my painting gave her hope. That was real. That mattered. This car ride to another party where I'd pretend to be less than I was. This was fake. The parking man took our car with a big smile. Nathan's hand touched my back as we walked into James's building, not because he loved me, but because he wanted people to see us together. He did this at every party, showing I belonged to him while keeping me far enough away that we looked married but not in love. "Remember," he whispered as we waited for the elevator. "Smile tonight. You looked angry at the last party. These are important people, Nathan. My job needs these friendships. His job, not ours. Never ours anymore." The elevator opened straight into James's apartment, and I watched Nathan completely change. His back got straighter, his smile got bigger. His voice got deeper, like he was trying to sound more important. "James!" he called out, letting go of my back to shake hands with fake excitement that would disappear when we got home. "Nathan and Claire." James added my name like he almost forgot it, his eyes already looking past me to see who else arrived. This was my job now. The forgotten one, the extra person, the quiet partner in a partnership that wasn't equal anymore. Michelle came over with air kisses and fancy juice in a glass. "Claire, darling, you look beautiful. That dress is perfect. Nathan has such good taste." Even my clothes weren't my choice anymore. The dress I wore, the shoes on my feet, the way I did my hair. All because of Nathan's picking, as if I were a doll he dressed for show. "Thank you," I said with the careful voice I'd learned kept conversations short. Too much happiness invited more questions. Too little made me seem difficult. The balance was exhausting. "Claire works with art stuff," Nathan said smoothly when James asked what I'd been doing lately. "Just works with art stuff. Not owns 3 galleries or sold a $50,000 painting today. Just works with art stuff like I swept floors or organized pencils." I stood there in my expensive dress holding juice I didn't want, smiling at people who looked through me like I was invisible, and made a choice. Tonight would be different. Tonight I would try one more time to connect with the man I married. To find some piece of the person who once loved my art instead of feeling threatened by it. One more try to save what we'd built before it completely fell apart. If it failed, and part of me knew it would, at least I'd know I tried everything before whatever came next. The talking around me changed to business stuff and money things, words that floated by like background noise. Someone had made the lights darker, and the music changed from upbeat party music to something slower, more romantic. James took Michelle's hand easily, leading her to the space they'd cleared near the big windows. Tyler pulled Sarah close, whispering something that made her laugh and put her head on his shoulder. I stood at the edge of their happiness, holding my empty glass like a toy I forgot how to play with. The couples moved together so naturally, so comfortable with each other. When did Nathan and I lose that? Or did we ever really have it? A server walked by with a tray of drinks. I put down my empty glass and took a new one, drinking it faster than I should. The bubbles tickled slightly, giving me something to focus on besides the growing hurt in my chest. Across the room, Nathan was busy talking with Bradley and some client whose name I'd already forgotten. A song I remembered started playing. Sounded like the song from our wedding 3 years ago. Not exactly the same, but close enough to make me catch my breath. That night, Nathan had pulled me onto the empty dance floor at midnight, both of us laughing and happy and full of dreams. "We're going to have the best life," he'd whispered in my ear. "A big house, maybe kids someday, Sunday mornings drinking coffee on the porch. Everything, Claire. We're going to have everything." The memory pushed me forward before I could think. My hand found Nathan's arm, the fabric of his suit smooth and expensive under my fingers. The conversation stopped suddenly. Bradley looked at me with obvious annoyance. The client seemed confused, and Nathan's jaw got tight in that way that meant I'd broken his rules. "Dance with me." The words came out smaller than I wanted, more like begging than asking. Nathan's eyes looked at his friends, thinking about what looked better. Saying no would look bad. Saying yes would interrupt his business talk. I could see him choosing which was less trouble. "Gentlemen, excuse me," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Wife duties. Duties. That's what I'd become." His hand on my waist felt like it was just there because it had to be, not because he wanted to touch me. My hand on his shoulder met fabric that felt like armor. We started moving, but it was stiff, like two strangers in a dance class rather than a married couple sharing a moment. "The Henderson deal looks good," he said, his eyes looking somewhere over my shoulder, probably watching who was talking to whom, which connections were happening without him. "That's nice," I whispered, trying to pull him closer, to find some echo of the man who once danced with me until morning. His body resisted, keeping that careful distance. Everything about him showed impatience. The tapping of his fingers on my waist. The way his weight shifted like he was already planning to leave. The constant watching of the room that meant I wasn't worth his attention even for one dance. Around us, other couples moved with easy closeness. Michelle had her arms around James's neck, barefoot somewhere, laughing at something he whispered. Sarah and Tyler were barely moving, just holding each other like nobody else existed. Even the older couples, the ones married for many years, moved with comfortable familiarity that made my chest hurt. The wine and the music and the memory of better times created a moment of dangerous hope. Maybe if I could just close this distance, just remind him of what we used to have. I watched Michelle kiss James's cheek, saw Tyler brush Sarah's hair back gently, noticed how every other couple seemed to exist in their own private world of love. I leaned in. It wasn't meant to be big or dramatic, just a simple kiss. The kind married people share at parties when the music is soft and the lights are low. The kind that says, "We're still here, still us, still together despite everything." Nathan pulled back so hard that several people turned to stare. His face twisted with real disgust, like I tried to give him something gross. And then, loud enough for everyone to hear, clear enough that the music couldn't hide it, he said the words that would replay in my mind forever. "I'd rather kiss my dog than kiss you." The laughter was immediate and mean. James almost dropped his drink. Michelle's hand flew to her mouth in shocked delight. Bradley actually clapped like Nathan had just told the funniest joke ever. The sound crashed over me in waves. Each laugh was a separate hurt. Each giggle was proof that I was the joke, had always been the joke. But Nathan wasn't done. The laughter had fed something in him. Made him feel powerful about whatever story he'd been telling himself about us, about me. He raised his voice, making sure everyone could hear the next part. "You don't even meet my standards. Stay away from me." More laughter. Someone whistled. A phone appeared in someone's hand. Were they recording this? My face felt hot, but my body had gone cold, frozen in the middle of their amusement like a bug stuck on paper for people to look at. The room spun a little, not from the drinks, but from the sudden clear truth that flooded through me. Every warning sign I'd ignored lined up into a parade of truth. The anniversary he cancelled for a work meeting that his social media showed never happened. The separate bedrooms during busy work times that had somehow lasted 8 months. The way his clothes sometimes smelled like perfume I didn't own. The strange charges on our credit card he explained away as business dinners. The way he'd stopped saying "I love you" first, only saying it back when I said it. I stood there in my expensive dress, surrounded by laughter that sounded like breaking glass, and understood with perfect clarity that I'd been trying to save something that had been dead for years. I'd been so focused on fixing what we had that I hadn't noticed it was already gone. Something shifted inside me like a big piece moving into a new place. The embarrassment was still there, burning like fire. But underneath it, something else appeared. Something cold and smart, something that understood the difference between being hurt and being destroyed. They were still laughing, but I wasn't broken. Not anymore. My smile started small, just a tiny turn at the corners of my mouth. Not the polite smile I'd perfected for these parties. Not the diplomatic look I wore during gallery meetings. This was something else entirely, something that came from a deeper place. And I watched as it made the laughter around me stop and die like a flame suddenly running out of air. "You know what, Nathan?" My voice came out steady, calm, the same tone I used when explaining art history to students. "You're absolutely right. I don't meet your standards." His smirk got bigger, thinking my agreement meant I was giving up. Bradley chuckled and patted him on the shoulder. James raised his glass like celebrating. They thought they were watching my final embarrassment, my acceptance of his public rejection. "Your standards need someone who doesn't know about the Miller account." The words landed like surgical tools on a metal tray. Nathan's face changed, the smugness draining away like someone pulled a plug. His eyes darted to Bradley, then back to me. The room had gotten quiet enough that I could hear ice settling in someone's glass. "What are you talking about?" Nathan's voice had lost its confident sound. I reached into my small purse and pulled out my phone, the device suddenly feeling like a weapon I'd been hiding all evening. Your standards need someone who hasn't spent the last 2 months writing down every wrong thing in our bank accounts. Someone who didn't hire a money detective when she noticed $30,000 moving through fake companies in the islands. Michelle leaned forward, her perfectly made-up face showing the first real emotion I'd ever seen from her. James put down his drink with a sharp click against the marble counter. The feeling in the room had shifted from mean amusement to electric tension. "This is ridiculous," Nathan said, but his voice cracked on the last word. I swiped through my phone slowly, letting each motion build the tension. Here's the investigation report. Fake company papers, bank transfers on the same days you said you were at conferences that, interesting fact, you never actually went to. I turned the screen toward the crowd, watching them lean in like bugs to a light. Especially Bradley. These texts from Tuesday, March 10th, 4:15 in the afternoon. Should I play the recording of you two discussing how to hide evidence before the big meeting? Bradley's face went from healthy tan to sick gray in seconds. That's... You can't. I touched the play button. Nathan's voice filled the room from my phone speaker, tiny but clear. We need to delete everything before Davidson checks the money. Move it through the side company, then shut it down. Make it look like a client mistake. Someone dropped a glass. The sound of it breaking against marble matched Nathan's recorded confession perfectly. James stumbled backward, his hand reaching for the wall to stay steady. The Miller account. That was my dad's retirement money. Your standards, I continued, my voice cutting through the chaos starting to build, also need someone who doesn't know about Sophia. Who's Sophia? Sarah's voice was sharp, but she wasn't asking me. She had turned to Tyler, her boyfriend, whose face had suddenly gone pale. The 22-year-old assistant from Tyler's office, I said, watching the dominoes begin their fall. The one who needed that job so badly. The one Nathan's been visiting at her apartment every Wednesday. Tyler's sister, actually. Funny how these things connect. Sarah's hand hit Tyler's face before he could speak. The slap echoed through the apartment like a gunshot. Your sister. The one you said needed career help. Your standards need someone who doesn't read text messages. I scrolled through my phone, finding the screenshots I'd saved. Like this one from 2 hours ago. Can't wait to leave this boring party so I can see you tomorrow. Claire's so pathetic it's embarrassing. Or this one from last Monday. My wife is desperate. She actually thinks I'm working late. Michelle had moved closer, reading over my shoulder. Oh my God, she whispered, then louder, turning to James. The pills. The pills missing from our bathroom cabinet. You said you didn't. What pills? James asked, but his confusion seemed real. The little blue ones. Michelle's voice was rising. You said you didn't need them, but they keep disappearing. And now, she turned on Nathan. You were at our house last week for the game. You used our bathroom. Nathan lunged toward me then, his hand reaching for my phone. But I stepped aside with the same precision I used when moving around art installations. Years of gallery work had taught me how to move efficiently, and he stumbled past me, catching himself on a decorative table that wobbled under his weight. The Peterson portfolio, I announced to the room, which had become frozen with horror. Check your bank statements, everyone. Really check them. Those amazing returns Nathan's been showing. Creative math. The money's been taken into accounts in Panama. The FBI knows about all of it. You're lying. Nathan's voice had gone high, desperate. I pulled up another document on my phone. The Federal Police Office disagrees. This is confirmation that arrest papers will be served Monday morning at your office. During the partner meeting, specifically, Agent Wilson thought that timing would be particularly effective. The room erupted. James was shouting about his father's money. Michelle was screaming at James about the pills and asking how he could not know. Sarah was demanding Tyler explain his role while he stammered denials. Bradley had his phone out, frantically typing, Probably trying to move money or warn someone or book a plane to somewhere the police couldn't reach. Through it all, Nathan stood frozen in the middle of the chaos he'd created. His carefully built world collapsing around him like a house of cards in a storm. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. For once, he had no script, no charming lie, no audience ready to laugh at his cruelty. "Oh, and Nathan," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "Your mom knows everything. Barbara called me last week after her accountant found problems in the retirement fund you manage for her. We had a very interesting conversation about where your father's retirement money actually went." His legs seemed to give out then. He sank onto one of James's designer chairs, his head in his hands. The man who'd stood in the center of the room comparing me to a dog 5 minutes ago had been reduced to something small and pathetic. The sound of my heels on marble was the only noise as I walked toward the door, each step measured and deliberate. The crowd parted, some staring at me with shock, others with something that might have been respect or fear. At the entrance, I turned back one final time. The scene was perfect in its destruction. Rich people reduced to screaming accusations at each other. The careful social world they'd built crumbling as each revelation exposed another lie, another betrayal, another crime. And in the center of it all, my husband, no, my soon-to-be ex-husband, sat with his face in his hands, finally understanding what it felt like to be stripped bare and humiliated in front of everyone who mattered to him. I pushed through the door and into the hallway, my heels creating a sharp rhythm against the marble floor. Behind me, the chaos continued, voices raised in accusation, furniture scraping as people moved, Michelle's shrill demands for answers cutting through it all. But ahead of me lay only silence and the gleaming elevator doors at the end of the hall. My hand was steady as I pressed the button, though I could feel the adrenaline starting to fade, leaving something empty in its wake. The elevator arrived with a soft sound that seemed too cheerful for what had just happened. As I stepped inside, Michelle's voice suddenly called out behind me. "Claire, wait." She stood in the doorway, her makeup smeared, holding something in her hand. The bracelet, a diamond piece she'd been showing off all evening. "This bracelet," she said, her voice shaking. "You said it was bought with the Anderson Trust money. Check the purchase date against the withdrawal records. April 3rd, $28,000. You might want to take it off before the money freeze hits Monday. They'll consider it evidence." She yanked the bracelet off so quickly the clasp broke, diamonds scattering across the marble like broken promises. The elevator doors closed on her scrambling to collect them. And suddenly I was alone in that small mirrored space, descending. 20 seconds. That's what I gave myself. 20 seconds to shake, to feel how big what I just did was. My hands trembled as I gripped the rail. My legs suddenly unsteady in heels that had carried me through long gallery openings but suddenly felt inadequate for this moment. 18 seconds. 18. 20. I straightened my back, pulled out my phone, and typed a message to my lawyer. "It's done. Everything is in motion. File the papers Monday morning." The response was immediate. "Security cameras. They'll have it all. Make sure Wilson knows." The elevator opened to the lobby where the doorman nodded politely, unaware of the destruction happening 40 floors above. Outside, the parking attendant brought my car around. I'd driven separately, knowing somehow that I'd need my own way out. The drive home was automatic, muscle memory driving while my mind replayed every moment, every word, every expression on Nathan's face as his world collapsed. Our house stood dark against the streetlights, looking exactly as it had when we'd left 2 hours ago, though everything had changed. I parked in the garage and sat for a moment, staring at Nathan's golf clubs on the wall. His bicycle he never rode, the tools he'd never opened. Props in a performance of a life he'd wanted people to think he lived. Inside, I moved with purpose. Box after box came up from the basement. The good ones we'd saved from our wedding, sturdy and clean. His college diploma came off the wall first, the frame heavier than expected. The glass reflected my face back at me like an accusation. Into the box it went, followed by his collection of fancy watches in their velvet case. each one a gift from clients whose money he'd been stealing. My phone buzzed continuously, Nathan's name appearing over and over. I let it ring as I packed his suits, each one pressed and hanging, his shoes polished and paired, the watch his father had given him for college graduation. I held it for a moment, remembering how proud he'd been, how he'd shown it to everyone at dinner that night. His father, whose retirement money Nathan had been draining. Text broke through. Claire, please let me explain. Then another. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. And another. You've ruined everything my whole life. Followed by. I'll make you pay for this. Then, please come back. We can fix this. The emotional chaos of his messages might have affected me once. Now they were just evidence of a man scrambling for any hold as he fell. I found our wedding album in the bottom drawer of his desk, hidden under tax papers. The cover was white leather with our initials stamped in gold. Inside, that woman in white smiled back at me, happy with certainty about her future. Nathan stood beside her, his hand on her waist, looking at her like she was everything he'd ever wanted. When had that look changed? When had she become an accessory to manage rather than a partner to cherish? The tears came then, not for him or for us, but for her, that woman who'd believed in forever, who'd thought love meant something more than performance and ownership. I sat on the floor of his office, surrounded by boxes of his life, and cried for the death of her innocent faith in happy endings. My phone rang. Emma's name appeared on the screen. I saw Michelle's social media post, my sister said without introduction. It cut off mid-scene, but there was screaming. Are you okay? Can you come? My voice sounded rough, unfamiliar. I'm already in the car. Be there in 2 hours. The next morning arrived gray and quiet. Emma had arrived at 1 in the morning with a suitcase and a bag of food, finding me asleep on the couch surrounded by boxes. She'd covered me with a blanket and started making coffee, the smell pulling me from restless dreams about falling diamonds and marble floors. You have a meeting, she said, handing me a cup. David Wilson, 8 o'clock. Corner Cafe. I'd forgotten. Wilson was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner table with clear views of both doors. Habits of the profession, I supposed. He stood when he saw me, professional but not unkind. Mrs. Hart. Soon to be Ms. Monroe again, I interrupted. He nodded, understanding. I slid the small computer drive across the table. 2 years of evidence compressed into a device smaller than my thumb. My mom noticed first, I explained. She's a retired banker, does our taxes as a favor. Small problems that didn't match our reported income. I started writing down everything after that. Wilson reviewed the files on his laptop, his face growing more serious with each document. This is very detailed. With what you revealed last night plus this documentation, we have enough for federal charges. Nathan's money will be frozen by noon. James and Tyler are now also under investigation. And my protection agreement. Solid. You didn't know about the criminal activity when it began. You reported it as soon as you discovered it. And you're cooperating fully. You're protected. Back home, Emma had rearranged the furniture, pushing Nathan's chair into the garage, centering the couch I'd bought before meeting him. The one he'd always complained was too soft, too orange, too something. He hated this couch, I said, sinking into it. Remember when he made you miss Dad's birthday? Emma said suddenly. Said it was a critical business dinner. I nodded, remembering the disappointment in our father's voice when I'd called to cancel. I saw social media photos that night. He was at some bar opening with that crowd. No business clients, just champagne and people who weren't you. We sat in comfortable silence, sisters who'd grown apart during my marriage now finding our way back. Emma pulled out her laptop, and together we began making lists. Lawyer appointments, money advisors, support groups, practical steps toward a life that would be mine alone. Monday morning arrived with unexpected sunshine streaming through the gallery windows. Emma had left for Boston at dawn, promising to return next weekend, and I'd driven to the downtown gallery on autopilot, my mind carefully separated between the art show ahead and the knowledge of what was happening across the city. The client was 73, a retired teacher from Oak Park, who wanted to buy a painting for her granddaughter's college graduation. She sat in the viewing room with hopeful eyes I'd seen hundreds of times before. I focused on her face as I explained the artwork, using her joy to anchor myself in this moment, this purpose, this life that existed separate from the destruction unfolding in downtown office buildings. In the gallery space, my team worked with practiced efficiency. Maria, my senior curator, studied the wall layouts while making notes. Tom, my favorite installer, arranged paintings with careful precision. They moved around me like a well-practiced orchestra, unaware their conductor was internally tracking time, knowing that at exactly 9 o'clock, FBI agents would be walking into Wilson, Hart and Partners. "This one," I said to the grandmother, showing her a sunrise painting. The colors felt like truth, like something real and purposeful. Here in this quiet gallery with its peaceful environment and clear purpose, I could help someone find beauty while another life, the one I'd built with Nathan, officially ended. The consultation stretched into its second hour when Maria commented on my unusual calm. "You're different today, boss. More focused somehow." If only she knew that every careful explanation, every thoughtful suggestion was meditation against imagining Nathan's face when agents entered that conference room. The partner meeting always started at 9 sharp. Wilson would be mid-presentation about quarterly numbers when the doors would open. The arrests would be public, visible, impossible to spin or explain away. 3 hours in, the grandmother decided on 3 paintings instead of 1. "My other grandchildren deserve beauty too," she said, tears in her eyes. I worked through the paperwork methodically, processing payments with the same care I'd used to document 2 years of financial crimes. Every challenge in this sale could be solved with patience and kindness. Unlike marriages built on lies, trust could actually be repaired with the right people. 4 hours after opening, I completed the final sale. The grandmother left happy, carrying receipts for art that would bring joy to her family. A beauty that would last through decades of birthdays and celebrations, and all the life Nathan had tried to steal from retirees whose pensions he'd stolen. "Beautiful work," Maria said as we updated inventory. "That lady's grandkids are going to treasure those pieces because of you." I took off my gallery jacket, my shirt damp with effort, and checked my phone. 14 missed calls. 2 from numbers I didn't recognize, likely reporters. The rest from various partners at Nathan's office. The news had broken. In my office, I'd barely sat down when Michelle appeared in my doorway. Gone was the perfectly dressed woman from Friday night's party. Her designer clothes had been replaced with a simple dress from a regular store. Her face bare of makeup except for streaks that suggested she'd been crying in her car. "Can I come in?" Her voice was small, uncertain. I pointed to the chair across from my desk. She sat carefully, as if she might break something, including herself. "James was arrested an hour ago," she said, the words tumbling out. "They came to the house, the FBI. They had official papers. They took everything, computers, files, even our phones. I had to borrow my neighbor's phone just to make calls." I waited, not offering comfort or judgment, just space for her to continue. "Our bank accounts are frozen. All of them, even my personal account from before we married. I can't access anything." She laughed, but it was hollow, broken. "I went to 2 ATMs trying to get cash for gas. The lady at the bank looked at me with such pity when she explained the federal hold. 'I'm sorry you're going through this,' I said, meaning it. Whatever Michelle's problems, she hadn't planned the crimes. 'Are you?' She looked up sharply. Because I laughed. Friday night when Nathan said those things to you, I laughed. I've laughed at you for years, Claire. Every party, every gathering, we all did. We called you the Ice Queen, the boring artist who didn't know how to have fun. The confession hung between us like a knife waiting to cut. And the whole time," she continued, tears falling freely now, "James was stealing from his own father, from clients who trusted him. He had affairs, multiple affairs. There's apparently a whole secret credit card I never knew about. The FBI agent asked me about trips to Miami I didn't even know happened. She pulled a tissue from her purse, a regular purse, not the designer bag she usually carried. I was so busy feeling better than you, laughing at your marriage, that I never looked at my own. We were living the same lie, except you were smart enough to see it. My desk phone rang. I let it go to voicemail, but the screen showed a name that made Michelle flinch. Wilson, Hart and Partners. They're all calling me, I said. Former colleagues of Nathan's. Some fishing for information, trying to figure out their exposure. Others wanting to distance themselves. Make sure I know they had no idea what was happening. Did they know? Michelle asked. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I recognized. Nathan's former secretary, Beth. Ms. Monroe, I wanted you to know that we all knew about Sophia. About the others too. I'm sorry we never said anything. He used to brag about it at office parties. Said you were too focused on work to notice. Said he was planning to leave once the Tokyo deal closed. I kept records if you need them for divorce papers. I showed Michelle the message. She read it twice, her face crumpling. They all knew, she whispered. At every party, every dinner. They all knew our husbands were destroying us for fun. My phone rang again. This time I recognized the number. Barbara Hart, Nathan's mother. I'd been dreading this call. I should take this, I told Michelle. She stood to leave, then stopped at the Claire, that strength they made fun of you for? Don't lose it. It's the only reason you're still standing while the rest of us are falling apart. Barbara's voice was sharp when I answered. Decades of proper manners barely hiding her feelings. Claire, I owe you an apology. Not hello, not how are you doing. Straight to business like always. I've been a terrible mother-in-law. I disapproved of your art career. Thought you should focus on giving me grandchildren. Criticized you for not supporting Nathan's dreams properly. I said nothing, letting her continue. I hired a private investigator 4 months ago, she said. The retirement account problems were too obvious to ignore. I know everything, the affairs, the stealing, the lies. I've already spoken to the federal prosecutor. I'll testify against my own son if needed. Barbara, he was trying to put the beach house into my name. Did you know that? To hide property from possible lawsuits. The paperwork was prepared but never signed. He must have gotten distracted by his scheming. Pause. I raised him better than this. His father would be heartbroken. 2 months had passed since the arrests, and fall had turned the city's parks into studies of red and gold. I sat in my home office, the one Nathan had never entered because it was too messy with art books, writing an email to Marcus Chen, a business blogger whose readers included every major company in the city. The subject line reads simply, "Information you should see." The attachments included court papers, arrest records, and a detailed timeline of the fraud that I'd put together with my lawyer's approval. Every document was public record, but scattered across different websites. I was simply putting them into one package that would appear first whenever anyone searched Nathan's name for the next 10 years. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. We'd been in contact since I'd connected her with Linda Martinez, a lawyer who specialized in cases against bad bosses. Lawsuit filed this morning. Emotional harm and job discrimination. Linda says the timing with your document release is perfect. Thank you, Claire. I'd never expected to become friends with my husband's mistress. But Sophia had been hurt too. 22 years old, told she was special, promised a future that was never going to happen. She was 6 months pregnant now, living with her parents in Indiana, rebuilding a life that Nathan had damaged with his lies. That evening, I attended the City Arts Foundation Gala, the same event where I'd met Nathan 5 years ago. Back then, I'd been the promising young artist he'd pursued with flowers and compliments. Now I walked in alone, my presence creating waves of whispered conversations throughout the ballroom. Claire, darling, Patricia Whitestone approached, her smile tight with curiosity. How brave of you to come. Brave, as if attending a charity event needed courage. As if I were the one who should be hiding. The Arts Foundation needs support regardless of personal situations. I replied, accepting a drink from a passing server. Throughout the evening, I watched the social dance unfold. Nathan's former colleagues grouped in corners, their bodies angled away from anyone connected to the scandal. James's former clients moved through the room like lost souls, trying to make new business connections while their frozen money left them struggling. Near the silent auction tables, I overheard Bradley's wife, Karen, speaking to a small group of women. We had no idea, of course. Bradley barely knew Nathan outside of work functions. I activated the recording app on my phone, keeping it casually at my side. Please, another woman laughed. Bradley was at every guy's night. Remember that Miami trip last year? My husband said they were practically celebrating something. Now we know what, the Tokyo deal. Karen admitted, her voice dropping. Bradley mentioned it once. Said Nathan had found a creative solution to the money problem. We should have known creative meant illegal. These admissions, these small acknowledgments of willful blindness, were building blocks in a larger structure of accountability. My lawyer would be very interested in Bradley's prior knowledge of the Tokyo deal. The divorce proceedings had begun 1 week earlier, and Nathan had arrived with a plan that was breathtaking in its boldness. His lawyer argued that my substantial gallery income should be considered in the settlement, that my earnings should offset his current inability to work due to the criminal charges. Your Honor, Nathan's lawyer had stated, Ms. Monroe earned over $300,000 last year. Mr. Hart's career has been destroyed by allegations. By federal charges, my lawyer Diana interrupted. Not allegations. Charges based on evidence Ms. Monroe provided after discovering her husband's criminal activity. Diana then showed a folder that made Nathan visibly pale. We've discovered digital currency accounts in Mr. Hart's name containing approximately $150,000 in Bitcoin purchased over the last year. Additionally, there's a car collection valued at $200,000 stored in a warehouse in Gary, Indiana, under his mother's name but paid for with marital money. Each revelation was another cut, precise and calculated. Nathan's lawyer scrambled to respond, but Diana wasn't finished. There's also the matter of the motorcycle registration in Wisconsin, the rental property in Michigan he never disclosed, and the safety deposit box at Second National containing gold coins and valuable stamps. By the end of that hearing, Nathan's position had crumbled entirely. He would leave the marriage with his criminal defense lawyer fees and nothing else. One day after the divorce hearing, Sarah Coleman contacted me. Tyler's wife had discovered her own collection of evidence and wanted to compare notes. We met at a quiet coffee shop in River North, two women bound by the peculiar sisterhood of betrayal. Tyler recorded everything, Sarah said, sliding a computer drive across the table. He had this app on his phone that automatically saved calls, including ones with Nathan. The recordings were damning. Conversations about moving money, discussions about which accounts they targeted, jokes about their wives being too stupid or too trusting to notice. In one particularly cold exchange, they laughed about a retired firefighter whose entire pension they drained. His name was Robert Kane, Sarah said. Fought fires for 35 years. They took everything. That conversation led to another revelation. Sarah had been contacted by 4 other women, all connected to the scandal in various ways. Some were wives of criminals, others were victims whose husbands' retirement accounts had been stolen. We organized a meeting at my apartment the following week. 6 women gathered in my living room on a Tuesday evening. We ranged in age from 22 to 70, united by our connection to this web of financial crime and emotional violence. There was Helen Chen, whose husband's entire retirement savings had vanished. Maria Williams, whose husband had been Bradley's partner before the company collapsed. Rita Martinez, who discovered her husband had been helping with the money laundering. We're not just victims, I said, opening the meeting. We're witnesses. We have information that can expand this investigation, ensure everyone involved is held responsible. Helen nodded firmly. I've been writing everything down for months. My husband thought I didn't understand money because I was a librarian. He was wrong. Over tea and carefully organized evidence, We built our case. Each woman contributed pieces, recorded conversations, suspicious documents, financial records that didn't make sense. Maria had emails showing the crime went back 4 years. Rita had photographs of meetings that were supposedly never held. They thought we were decorations, Rita said, her voice steady with controlled anger. Pretty things to display at parties while they built their empires on theft. They never imagined we were paying attention. By the end of that evening, we had enough additional evidence to expand the federal investigation significantly. Our group chat became headquarters for accountability. Each woman committed to ensuring that justice reached beyond just the main criminals. As I cleaned up after everyone left, I found a sticky note Sarah had left on my kitchen counter. They called us trophy wives. Let's show them what trophies are really made of. Solid gold and impossible to break. I tucked Sarah's note into my kitchen drawer, a small reminder of the strength we'd built from shared hurt. 7 months had passed since that first gathering, and today we would all sit together again, but this time in a federal courtroom for Nathan's sentencing. The courthouse stood against a cold January sky, its stone columns looking like bars already. I arrived early, wanting to review my victim statement one final time. The paper trembled slightly in my hands, not from fear, but from the weight of speaking for so many who'd been silenced by shame and confusion. The courtroom filled slowly. Barbara arrived wearing black, her face composed but aged by months of revelation about the son she'd raised. Behind her, the other women from our group filed in. Helen, Maria, Rita, Sarah, and 2 others who joined us as the investigation widened. Sophia wasn't there, too close to her baby's birth to travel, but she'd sent her own written statement for the judge to review. When they brought Nathan in, the orange jail clothes had replaced his expensive suits, and federal custody had worn away his carefully maintained appearance. He'd lost weight, his face thin, the confidence that once commanded rooms reduced to something empty. His eyes searched the gallery until they found mine, holding my gaze for a moment before I looked away. Ms. Monroe, the prosecutor addressed me when my turn came. You may deliver your statement. I stood, my heels clicking against the courtroom floor with the same rhythm they'd had leaving James's apartment that night. The stand felt solid under my hands as I began. Your Honor, I'm not here to talk about the money Nathan stole, though the damage extends to dozens of families. I'm here to talk about the theft that doesn't show up in bank records, the systematic destruction of trust disguised as marriage. Nathan shifted in his seat, his chains making a small metallic sound. For 3 years I was married to a man who treated cruelty as entertainment, who would publicly humiliate me at social gatherings, then make me feel crazy when I objected. At a party in front of colleagues and friends, he told me he'd rather kiss his dog than kiss me, that I didn't meet his standards. That room laughed while my marriage publicly ended, turned into entertainment for people who knew about his affairs, his theft, his complete lack of morals, but said nothing because it was more fun to watch me not know. The judge leaned forward slightly, his expression serious. The financial crimes destroyed retirements and futures, but the emotional violence he used destroyed something deeper. The ability to trust, to feel safe in your own home, to believe that love means something more than performance and ownership. He didn't just steal money. He stole years of my life, my confidence, my faith in partnership. That theft has no dollar amount. When the judge finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of everything he'd heard. Mr. Hart, the federal guidelines suggest 4 years for your financial crimes. However, the serious factors here, the breach of trust, the exploitation of marital assets, the systematic nature of your deception, warrant a departure from those guidelines. I sentence you to 6 years in federal prison. The gavel came down with finality. As I left the courtroom, I reached for Sarah's hand, then Helen's, creating a chain of women who'd survived similar devastation and found strength in shared truth. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Claire pulled out her phone at the party and started revealing those investigation reports, watching Nathan's smug victory transform into complete devastation. What was your most satisfying moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more gripping stories of betrayal and triumph. Subscribe to Pretty Revenge and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.